Hey guys, I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. We're doing a deck tech, but I'm doing a deck tech for a deck that I am not done building, and I'm asking for your help. So we are well into previews for Tarkir Dragonstorm. Looking like a really exciting set, lots of cool new cards, lots of cool new dragons especially, and I have my eye out for a new dragon commander because I have a Miram deck. And if you have seen our gameplay show, I think it has shown up twice and it has curb stomped. And on average, I feel like this deck is just a little too strong for my current playgroup, so I'm actively looking for a new dragon commander. Now, the new dragon that's for the pre-con, it seems like the easiest fix. Like if I just fix that, I wouldn't have to fix much of the 99, easy enough. But I also try not to have more than one deck of the same color combination in my energy deck. I'm thinking about switching to teamer, so I'm okay with changing the colors. But with that said, while there are a lot of cool new dragons in Tarkir Dragonstorm, there's not one that I'm like, this has to be the commander for my dragon deck. And I think I figured out what I want to do. So another thing that I've been doing to cut back on the number of decks that I have, because I had way too many, is that when given the opportunity, I take two decks that I already have and put them together and find some cool overlapping synergies. And I think the answer to that is Chaos. So I have this Yidris Maelstrom Wanderer deck, and it's not very good because Chaos is hard to pull off. If you want to see this has also been on the gameplay series. I think it was on the 4th of July no theme episode we did a couple summers ago, so you can check it out there. But the problem with this deck is it just has a hard time winning because Chaos cards are just so hard to control. But when you mix it with dragon synergies, I actually think you can control it a little bit better than you think. So I already have a commander in mind for this, but before I tell you who that is, I think I need to show you what I think are the most important cards to call something an actual Chaos deck. Not that you have to have these cards to be a Chaos deck, but for me personally, I couldn't see myself playing a Chaos deck without including these cards, or at least some of them. Cards that randomize what's in play or where it is in play. So we have Thieves Auction, which is you exile all permanents and then you choose one of those cards and put it onto the battlefield tapped in your control. Then each opponent does the same thing and you repeat the process until all of the exiled cards are chosen. So you mix up all the cards that are, all the permanents that are in play. Scrambleverse, similarly, for each non-land permanent, choose a player at random. Then each player gains control of each permanent chosen this way, untap those permanents. So those are the change stuff around the table. And then when you also have Glimpse of Tomorrow, which is a different effect but equally chaotic, you shuffle all permanents you own into your library, then reveal that many cards from the top of your library, and you put all of them onto the battlefield. Similarly, you have Warp World. Each player does it. Each player shuffles all permanents they own into their library, reveals that many cards from the top of their library, puts them onto the battlefield. And then you also have the Great Aurora, which is similarly but in green. Each player shuffles all cards in their hand and all permanents they own into their library, draws that many cards, and then you can put any number of lands onto the battlefield. So that one only affects lands as far as putting them directly back into play. But I think these are the antithesis of Chaos decks. And I think looking around, not hard to make this a little bit easier to control if you go with dragons. So let's start off with the commander I have picked. This is Karthus, Tyrant of Jund, which is for 4 and Jund, a 7/7 dragon with flying and haste that says our other dragons have haste, but more importantly, when it enters, we gain control of all dragons, then untap all dragons. So this, most importantly, works really well with these first couple cards we talked about. If we're going to be mixing up where things are, we just need to make sure we have enough mana that after these have resolved, that we can follow it up with Karthus, and we're going to be able to get all of our stuff back, as well as anything we might have stolen from our opponents for value. So while that's obviously very mana hungry, casting a 7 mana commander after casting a 7 or 8 mana spell, that's very mana hungry, that actually is a decent way to kind of control the chaos. All right, so what about the other Chaos cards that I had mentioned, the ones where you take all these things and you shuffle them back into play? Especially because this affects all of the opponents, this seems like it should be harder to control, but I really don't think it is. Because we have a lot of dragons that will just put a ton of extra things into play. Bonehorde Dracusar which at the beginning of our upkeep, we exile cards from the top of our library. We can play them this turn. Depending on what those cards are, we get tokens. We have Uldvara Hellkite, which whenever a dragon we control attacks, we get a 6/6 flyer dragon. We have Lathalas, which I don't think is going to make the final cut, if I'm being honest, but whenever another non-token dragon enters, we get a 5/5 flying dragon. We have Ganax, which whenever another dragon enters the battlefield on our control, we get treasure token. We have Goldspan Dragon, which when it attacks, we get a treasure token. And then we have Skyline Depot, which at the beginning of our upkeep, if we're the Monarch, we get 5/5 flying dragons. It also introduces the Monarch, which also is just really good in chaos because you're incentivizing combats. People make weird attacks, weird blocks because they want to keep the Monarch or whatever. So that's kind of fun and chaotic. But because we're also dragons, that means we have good evasive creatures to get the Monarch back if we ever did lose it. And we can even lean heavier into this, even outside of dragons. We can play cards like Farhaven Elf in our ramp package. So we're putting not only the land that we're ramping out, but also keeping the body. So it's more permanence in play than if we were just playing like a rampant growth or 3 visits or something like that. Similarly, a chaos card I really like is Descent into Avernus, which is an enchantment that at the beginning of our upkeep, we put 2 descent counters on it. Then each player makes X treasures, where X is the number of counters on it, and then it deals that much damage to each player. Tons of treasures on the board, which is good ramp, but also putting more permanence on the battlefield. And then I've really grown fond of these looting card draw spells in red. So we have like Seize the Spoils and Big Score. At additional cost, we discard a card, but then we get to draw 2 and then make 2 treasure tokens. So getting more mana, but also more permanence to shuffle in while also digging a little deeper into our deck. So I feel like that's actually pretty doable. It obviously won't completely eliminate any chaos that we have from these spells, but it's going to put it a lot more in our favor, especially if our opponents are getting random things out of their deck, maybe things scarier than they already had in play. We should still come out ahead because we're gonna have a bunch of big scary dragons. And then there's other dragons that kind of feel chaotic anyways. We have like Vivictus as Marty, which is a 6-mana 6/6 flyer that when it attacks, we basically get to Chaos Warp something. That's kind of fun. That's kind of chaotic. We have Vengeful Ancestor, which whenever it enters or attacks, we get to goad something. We have Warmonger Hellkite, which says all creatures attack each combat if able. Chaos Dragon. It's a good early body because it's only 3 mana. It attacks each combat if able, and then people are going to roll d20s to see who is attacked. And then Territorial Hellkite attacks every combat if able and an opponent at random. So we have a little bit of just chaotic dragon shenanigans. Anyways, it's kind of fun. And then here's a couple other kind of chaos-y cards that I thought kind of fit the theme well. We have Chaos Warp, which is an all-star in just, I think, red decks in general, but it's a fun chaotic card. This one has a dragon on the art though, so it has to go in there. And then you have cards like Coveted Jewel, like what I said about the monarchy, because we're gonna have these dragons that are huge and able to defend the monarchy or get it back if we do lose it. Coveted Jewel kind of works the same way, where you're passing it around, leads to interesting game patterns, but we can get it back pretty easily theoretically. And then finally, Time Sifter, which says at the beginning of each player's upkeep, each player removes the top card of their library from the game, and then the player who exiled the card with the highest converted mana cost takes an extra turn after this one. If 2 or more players are tied for the highest, the tie players repeat the process until the tie is broken. So you're messing up the turn order. It's fun, it's chaotic, but because we have a bunch of really big clunky dragons in our deck, that means we are actually probably going to win this more times than our opponents will on average. So overall, I'm kind of feeling like I'm cooking. I think this would be really fun as a way to spice up having a dragon deck, but not something as strong as Miram, and not feeling like I have to play the new Precon one. And it also lets me get rid of my current Chaos deck, which isn't very good at winning the game, and actually making a version of it that theoretically could win sometimes. And I'm not like super set on like finishing it right away because, like I said, we are still in preview season for Tarkir Dragonstorm, but there's only a handful of cards from that set that I feel like need to go in the 99 of this deck, so we'll see. But like I said, I need your help. If there's anything super important that you think should be in this deck, let me know in the comments. In the description of this video, you can find a Mox field link to the start of this deck. I have quite a few cuts, like maybe a dozen more cuts to do for this deck, but if you see something that I'm missing that you think should be in there, let me know. And if you really are feeling ballsy, go ahead and make your own version of it and send me the link. I don't think that works on YouTube anymore. I don't think you can just like leave a link in a YouTube video and YouTube won't remove it. So I have my email popped up here. Just send it to me via email and I will try checking it out. But let me know what you guys think. And also let me know what you think about Tarkir Dragonstorm. I will probably get around to doing my video that I normally do where I talk about my favorite cards from the set. Probably going to do that, but I'm really excited for the set. I think it's really cool. I like dragons. I like a lot of these new synergies. I like the clans, the 3-color matter stuff. So really excited. Hope you're all doing very well, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.